Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 324. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by three experienced homeschooling mothers and Kolbe Academy academic advisors. Rylan Buchanan, Diana Hayes, and Sarah Turley take up the topic of common pitfalls and stumbling blocks that can come up when homeschooling. From planning to balancing multiple children, avoiding burnout, and surviving times of illness and disruption, our guests provide us with a great deal of practical wisdom, along with a reminder to be kind and patient with ourselves. We hope that you enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Bonnie?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. This is a Monday recording for us, so it's nice to start the week. Continuing on our advisor series, we started a series with our Kolbe family advisors in episode 313. All sorts of topics relating to getting the school year off the ground and the day-to-day sorts of things that our advisors are well versed in from their own experience and walking with families through. So we're collecting some of that wisdom in some of these episodes. So today we have 2 of them back who've been here with us before, Sarah Turley and Rylan Buchanan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to have you back. And we also get to introduce another voice to the conversation, one who's making her Kolbecast debut. We have Diana Hayes. Hello.
Hello. It's nice to be here.
We're very happy to have you and get to know you a bit. Sarah and Rylan have been with us recently, so let's catch up with them quickly and then we'll get to know Diana a bit. Sarah, how have you been since we last visited with you?
Really good. Just soaking up the summer. We're starting to reach that point where it's time to, really start thinking about what school is going to look like. And we recently moved, so navigating all of that. But other than that, we're doing good.
Very good. I'm very glad to hear that. Glad to have you here back. Rylan, how are you? How have you been?
Doing well. Things are going great. I can't say that I'm into the school mode yet. We have our one big trip is coming shortly. After that, I know I will come back and lock and load into school mode. So I'm still embracing it as summer and school doesn't exist yet.
Okay. I'm good with that too. I'm glad you've got it. You've got it. I'm confident you've got this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll hit the ground running and that'll be good.
Very good. Well, glad you have that to look forward to as well, the trip you have coming up. And so good deal. All right, Diana, tell us about you and your background and your Kolbe connection, all that sort of stuff.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's nice to be here. My name is Diana Hayes. I've been married for 34 years, and I have 3 children and 3 granddaughters. And I am now, this year, officially a former homeschooling mom, as I just graduated my last student this past May.
Wow.
I homeschooled for 17 years and was with Kolbe for 16 of those. We were traditional homeschoolers the entire time, but my youngest was very involved in several Kolbe clubs. And so he had the wonderful experience of becoming friends with lots of other Kolbe students, which was really fabulous at graduation when he got to meet them all in person. And I've always loved everything about homeschooling and dreamed of working for Kolbe when my own homeschooling years were over. And a job just happened to open up when Michael was about to graduate, and I applied, and here I am.
Oh, they're just ideal for this conversation, for your own experience and now working for Kolbe, and glad to have you among us. What are some standout memories from your homeschooling chapter?
Well, probably 2, and they're very extremely opposite. The first is I loved every night when I was crawling into bed, I would dream about waking up and making my coffee. And we homeschooled at the kitchen table. And so I always set everything out every morning and would have my teaching, which was much more involved, when the kids were younger, obviously. But just sort of that, just the getting ready for each new day was always a lovely thought for me for some reason. And my other favorite part of homeschooling was, again, we were traditional homeschoolers, so we had a lot more flexibility, was just saying, you know what, we're studying American history. Let's go on a 3-week trip. We did it one year. We were gone 3 weeks. We drove to Washington, D.C., but stopped all along the way. We went to EWTN and did a lot of school in the car and in hotel rooms and visited Gettysburg and Valley Forge, just a lot of places along the way. And just that was what I really loved about homeschooling, was just sort of family time mixed in with learning all the time.
To have that approach each day like that, it's something that you work for, and it's a gift as well. Okay, so Diana, in starting this conversation about the common pitfalls and stumbling blocks, I'm intrigued by your first point that you suggest to us here in the outline we're working from. Tell us what it is and why it's top of the list.
So the finding the right balance of outside activities, that's what you're referring to,
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what I had, my pitfall was was disguised really because it was a huge blessing, but it was disguised as a pitfall because the year we started homeschooling, we live right behind a Catholic church. I can like throw a rock and hit it. And so my entire neighborhood is very, very Catholic. And we had a lot of homeschoolers when we started 17 years ago.
Okay.
And we live in a huge city. So we had a ton of opportunities for homeschoolers here. We had monthly museum classes. We had several Catholic co-ops. We had all the moms in the neighborhood. One was a PhD in chemistry and one had been a former math teacher. So the pitfall was we had so many things to pick from. And I didn't want to miss any of it, especially starting out when I really didn't know anything about what I was doing. I was just starting. And so we signed up for everything. And we also had a coach. I live near Rice University, and we had a former Rice alumni that was a swim coach, and she had a course for a swim class for homeschoolers 3 days a week. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we went over to Rice. The kids would swim, and that was our PE. And she was an amazing coach and a beautiful person. So I basically spent my 17 years going back and forth from overcommitting and signing up for everything, having a terrible time getting all the work done. So the next year saying, we're not doing anything outside the house. And so we would sign up for one or two things, but then we felt like we were missing out on everything. So then the next year I'd go to the next extreme, sign up for everything. So I did that really for 17 years. So some years we had trouble getting work done, or we were doing it in the car on the way here or there or whatever. But all in all, we always got our work done. My kids that have graduated college thrived in college. And so it all worked out fine and beautifully. But it's just sort of finding the balance between all the really fun things you can do and getting all your work done.
Yeah.
What a perennial challenge, right? There's so much good stuff to choose from. We can find ourselves overscheduled very easily. It's very relatable. Yeah. Okay. All right, Sarah, what was the first thing that came to your mind when you saw this topic?
I think for me, it's more of just the logistic part, being a military family, and the amount of times that we move and the amount of times that my husband is gone, either deployed or somewhere else, being away from a support system and then having to recreate a support system every single time. So going off what Diana said, a pitfall for us is like, yeah, you might have all of these opportunities this year, but then next year I'm going to have to potentially take all of those opportunities away. So finding the consistency in some form or fashion, like just keeping some sort of consistency, is the thing I immediately thought about specific to my family. I know that's not the case for necessarily everyone, but if I'm thinking from a personal standpoint, that would be mine. And a lot of people, I think, I never thought I would be homeschooling, to be honest. Like, I was not homeschooled. That wasn't something that I saw. And we were thrust into it like a lot of people were with COVID, switching from like a brick and mortar setting to where things were getting pushed online, and everybody was like, we don't know what we're doing. Everybody's doing the best that they can. And then I was the person that was like, we got to sign up for everything because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so those were the things that came up as soon as you said this. And then just working with families at Kolbe, thinking of different things that come up, like family loss, or when, unexpected life events happen, and navigating that whenever you're also trying to homeschool.
Again, very relatable. A lot of folks are probably like, yep, that's me too, or I've been through that. Yep. And definitely want to dive more deeply into all of that as our conversation continues. Rylan, next, bet you can guess what I'm going to ask you now. Like, what did you think of when you saw this topic come up?
Yeah, so mine was, I guess, a little bit more like nitty-gritty details. I think for Kolbe families specifically, if you're new to using Kolbe last year or two, one of the bigger pitfalls I see is everyone wants to do everything. So that same idea from Diana, right? I got to sign up for all this stuff outside my home, but actually, even with Kolbe, it can get you, and that is I have to sign up for every class that's on the roster, which is very
Yeah.
much not, it's not a great idea. It's not a good idea. I will state it blankly. You absolutely can try, but more times than not, come about October, November, when all the advisors start doing fall check-ins, majority of the time it comes with I think we bit off more than we could chew, and this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
And so then you spend the next 2 months damage controlling versus pick a smaller load, get really excited about what you're doing, talk with your advisor about what is it are the goals, what do you want to know by the end of the year, what courses are going to support those goals, and then in October, November, go, we have like an extra hour a day. What's something we could add that we would really enjoy? And then you just keep loving what you're doing and you don't ever go into damage control mode. So that's just one of the biggest ones. I've been in this role for 6 years now, and it is one of my most common conversations. And so I love to be able to get to have those conversations earlier with families, July, August, September, before you do your registration or before you purchase your books. Let's set up for success and enjoyment from day one versus damage control around Christmas. It's not super enjoyable as you're trying to head into the holiday season.
Yeah.
Guessing that for if you're a family that started out with the littles through the online program at Kolbe and you're kind of used to all of the uploading and all of that sort of thing, that maybe you're more ready once you get into the sixth grade where it's not everything's chosen. But if you're doing a lot, at least from what I've heard from other families, and this has been my experience too with Kolbe, if you're kind of used to homeschooling and kind of doing things at your own pace and you think, oh, I'll just sign up for a class, they're going to do that there and it's not my problem, I'll have more more freedom to do things. It's like it doesn't really work that way, both for the student and the parent. There's a lot of parents are still involved, and there's making sure everything's done on time, getting that work uploaded. So it always seems like it's like start out with if you're not used to it, start out with a little, like you were saying, Rylan, and then it's like, oh, okay, you build up the habits, when things have to get done. And then it tends to, at least for some of my children, it's been like, oh yeah, we did 3. Okay, we could go 4 or 5. We could do full time now. That'll be easy. I mean, not easy, but the routine
Easier.
is there. Easier, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
manageable.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I've seen that with like middle schoolers. Some of the families I've had, I mean, I've started with them in middle school and they are now into high school and they did exactly that. We're going to do one online class in sixth grade just to see what it looks like. And by the time they're freshmen, we're like, yeah, you can take 6 or 7 courses, which is a big load as a freshman in high school. But you can do that because every year through middle school, they added a little more and a little more. And they have their routine and the consistency, like Sarah said, so important. They have their routine, they have the consistency, and a little bit more isn't going to kill them. Versus we've never touched online or we've never touched async. And in high school, we want to do a full 7 course online load. It's possible. It might hurt a little bit though. And so starting those things in the younger year, those years to practice is great as they get older.
I like to recommend too, just thinking about like if you're new to it and you're just jumping off, like a good place to start is just becoming familiar with your state or wherever you are. Like you might not even be in a state because we weren't, but knowing what laws are for your specific area and just using that as a starting point if you're just completely lost, because then you know that you're meeting whatever that looks like, whatever requirement it is. So you don't have to go back later and say, oh my goodness, like we didn't do this and like this, so utilizing those resources like HSLDA and Googling your state laws or finding some type of legislation like a group in your state that is specifically advocating for homeschooling and reaching out to those places just to make sure that you are meeting whatever requirements you have to meet. And then you can kind of, if you have, like Rylan said, if you have extra time after you get going, like see, okay, like, yeah, we can add, whatever it is that you're interested in. That way it's just like sometimes I've seen people where they're like, we had no clue we had to do this, and now it's the end, and we have to add this on. And so that's one thing I think about. It's just mainly because we move so much that each time I'm looking up, I'm like, okay, what are we doing this year? Who do we have to report to?
That is a really good suggestion. Let's back up a little bit. Diana, talking about planning and scheduling the year. Now we're kind of sitting down to kind of reckon with what's coming with the school year. Talk to us about that scheduling. You suggest getting real close up in the schedule and really getting in there. Say more about that.
Sure. And again, my situation might be a little bit different than an online student or a full-time online because we were strictly traditional homeschoolers. But usually I didn't talk to my advisor very much during the middle of the year, but I talked to them usually when I was starting to, order and prepare my classes. And then I would talk to them at the end as I was going to start reporting. But I would register with Kolbe usually as soon as I could. As soon as the registration opened up, I would register, figure out what my classes were, and then start buying my books right away. And so I would get all my books in as soon as I registered. I would order that, get them in. And I would order these planners, one for each child. I was maybe a little bit compulsive about it. So nobody has to go to this degree, but since I was traditional, I mean, I felt like it was all on me. Like I had the course plans, but I had the 3 kids and they were all in 3 different grades. And one was very little and the other 2 were in high school, older. So I would take the first child's planner and go subject by subject and put into the planner. And I did this, it took me usually all summer long. I got good at it by the end and I could do it more quickly, but I would plan every single day of the coming school year in this planner. And a lot of times it would just say, see course plan, read today's course plan or whatever. And then the next day it was, read what was assigned in the course plan. So I would do that for each child, a planner with each subject planned out for every day for the whole year, which of course we would, sometimes get off of. And then I had a piece of software that I bought like the first year I started homeschooling. It's not even available anymore and they don't update it. So I was barely squeaking by on it because it was so old this last year. But then what I would do is each Sunday night, once school started, I would take out this planner that I worked on all summer and I would type in whatever I had written into the course plan. I would type it into the week on my planner. And then each child on Monday morning had their week course, what they had to do for the whole week. And they could just check it off as they got it done. And then I would know I could grade it once it was checked off. So it was detailed, but honestly, I loved it because even if you got off or if something came up and you wanted to go to this, museum thing or head off on this little trip or whatever, I knew exactly what I had to finish by the end of the year. And so it was just like a nice, very detailed checklist for me to make sure I got finished.
I love that detail.
That's awesome.
That sort of thing is just right. I just love that sort of hearing all about that. And the course plans are so detailed. You can work right from the course plans. I love that idea of having the kids get used to working with the course plans themselves. And then, but when you bring them all together like that, you can see, okay, I can shift this around over here or yeah.
We did do a lot of shifting, just so you know. I was very detailed in my planning, but we certainly did a lot of shifting around during the year.
As you have to, that's to be expected.
And I will add, we have, if parents are interested, they like the idea of like Diana had it all written out. Every day, here's what we're doing. We have a fantastic parent partnership meeting that we recorded a couple years ago, and it is specifically on building your daily schedule. How do we do this? How do we keep track of stuff? Lots of good little tidbits and ideas of just how to build that day out. So if parents want to reach out to their advisors, they can request that recording and they can get some of that help. It's a great time to listen to that right now. I don't know, Diana, how you made your scheduling. One of the pitfalls that can happen when you start that scheduling is just like there's a lot of great stuff to do. You want to do the great stuff every day. And all of a sudden your homeschool days went from what could be 2 hours to like 6 hours because we're hitting all the subjects. So it's great maybe to listen to that parent partnership, get some ideas on how do you do rotating schedules, what subjects need to happen every day versus what subjects could happen 2 or 3 days a week. So just some of those pieces that we have some great supports. Parents could really benefit from it, and then how to do that rotational scheduling. and maybe not even to the detail to like Diana had it written out all the way to a T. I would love that. If I had the time for that, that is the way I would do scheduling too. As Bonnie pointed out, though, our course plans are super detailed, which is fantastic. I have some families that have basically taught their kids, like we said, go check the course plan, but they have a system within the course plan for marking off. So it's like on their daily schedule, it might say math, English, history, and religion. Like that's going to be as detailed as they get in their daily planner. So just like Diana had, here's what subjects you need to hit. But you're going to hit into that course plan and it's highlighted the last day that you completed. So I'm doing religion and I'm going to the next lesson that's not highlighted. So there's ways to use those other ones too if you don't quite have the time to write it out, especially if you're a bigger family, maybe you have 3, 4 plus kids. It can be hard. But look into that PPM. There's other ways to kind of work on that too. I love Diana's idea. Can I send you my stuff, Diana, and just have you write it for me
I actually loved that part of it,
and
so
then
you
bring it
can.
back? You did. I
That
said,
was
I think I
almost
would
my
love
favorite
it.
part of homeschooling.
Yeah, I'd love to have a plan that's very much kosher to like, here's my kids' plan within the course plan. That's fantastic.
But super helpful you started it early. You were working on it over the summertime. You were really familiar with the whole where's this even going? I mean, you've got the whole picture and you started early and it wasn't a cram session. And Rylan has a point to this point, and I've been there a lot where I'm like scrambling to get stuff ready very soon. But Rylan, would you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so like Diana pointed out, she started her planning early, and with the course plans, they are so packed with fantastic stuff. We really do give you like the creme de la creme. Here's everything that you need to know how to get through this course plan. But if you try to open that up and say, I'm going to start school next week, it can be incredibly overwhelming. So start your planning early. Just even as a parent, just open it and read through it. Know your roadmap, where we're starting, where we're headed, um, how to make adjustments. Again, our parent partnership that talks about scheduling also talks about adjusting on course plans. They are built with the intentions for families to adjust them. We give you everything so that, and all you have to do is say, we're going to remove this or we're going to adjust how we complete that assignment versus this isn't enough. It's such a basic outline. Now I have to figure out how to get more detailed. We wanted to make it easy. So don't wait until the week before school to say, I'm going to start school next week. I promise you, there's going to be a fight in the house or tears or all of the above. It's going to be rough.
And
Start
that'll
a
be the
little bit
mom.
earlier.
And that'll be the
It'll
mom.
be
I
the
was
mom.
thinking
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah. I'm saying it won't be from the kids.
Would be me.
They're gonna be like, "Oh, mom's not ready. We're gonna go run outside and play while she figures this out."
Right, yeah.
I was that kid. I was that kid, so I know what's on the other side of the table. Yeah. So give yourself time. Your course plans are in your portal right now. If you've completed course registration and you're doing traditional homeschooling or digital homeschooling, you have access to those right now. If you're doing async, you have access to those courses. You could go check them out and see, do we need to adjust the timeline that maybe is already pre-written in there? Because it's just a suggested timeline. So go spend some time with them, get excited. I personally haven't done it yet myself. Again, when I came back from vacation, I know that's what I have to do in order to be prepared for August.
Well, even you can draw from that for if your students are taking online classes too, because you can, if you're coming from that sort of approach and you want to have a sense of what they're doing in their online classes, you can still draw from that too, or teach them to do it, which I think is among the things that I'm hoping to pass on. Okay, Sarah, what's it like for you? I'm sure as with your many moves and everything that you manage, that factors in probably with your summer planning. Are you up for shedding some light on that?
Yeah, so some years are really on top of things and like start the planning process early and kind of like map everything out and be able to look. And then I'll be honest, like some years where my husband's been deployed or we're in a move or the move is like lining up at a weird time and we don't have all of our stuff with us because it's like in a truck or what have you. Like there is a lot of like, all right, we're opening this up on day one and we're figuring it out as we go. So every year has honestly looked different. And I was thinking about that. We have done traditional homeschool all one year. We have done asynchronous and traditional homeschool. We have done online classes. And then, every year has looked a little bit different for us. So we've navigated our, like our planning looks a little bit different each year. And I think that that's okay. I think it's important for people to know that it's okay that not every year is going to look exactly the same, even for an individual student. Especially if you have children with learning differences. I have two out of the three of mine have dyslexia and dysgraphia, and we have been on a journey to figure out what style of learning works best for them. So sometimes, like, we have this great plan, and mid-year it's like, no, we got to change something. This is not working. So that's okay too. Sometimes your plans, you think they'll look, you have a certain vision in August or, summertime, what you think it's going to look like, and then you get into it and you realize this isn't working for any of us. And now we have to make a different plan, and that's okay. And in some years, I feel like some subjects do kind of get put on the back burner, for a lack of better terms, but ultimately it all does balance out in the long run. You just can't see it, and it's really hard. So I think it's great to hear from people like Diana who have children that have graduated. If you can find someone, even if it's online through like an online community that has graduated homeschool kids, you'll see that you're not failing, and that you are doing the best thing for your children, and you're advocating for them, and you're trying to find what works. And I know that's kind of like off topic of the planning part, but I think I just want to make the point that your plans can change even mid-year, even week to week. And that's okay. So I've had to really accept that, because I am a planner and I am a routine oriented person, and which is ironic because my life is the exact opposite. And so it's like I've spent so many years trying to like I just keep hitting this brick wall, and then finally it's like you just have to surrender, because it's really not it's not my will, and I need to just let go. So permission to let go is what I would share with everyone, is that we're not in control.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
my wife often handles the majority of the homeschool, so I am like a third person in this experience. But we don't have extremely developed planners or anything here. But what I do notice is my wife every weekend, or every at the end of the week or at the beginning of the week, is always sitting down with the kids and saying, "Okay, where did you get, what did we get done last week? What's coming up?" And then there's those. The nice thing about the weekly thing is that you can start to be like, "Wait, you only got 2 days of math done last week. Okay, this week you're sitting next to me for an hour every day while we get caught up on the math that we're doing." And because I've seen families without that kind of regular check-in, you get, things are busy, and then a month goes by and 2 months go by, and then you say, "Okay, where's the math that I need to scan to sign in?" It's like, "Oh, I haven't been doing math for the last month." And it's like, okay, then it's a bigger problem of catch up at that point. But if you can kind of, even if you're adjusting kind of in a loose way every week, it seems like just making sure you've got these touch points and you're not getting too far off, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Stephen. That's kind of where we've had to go to, is more of a weekly check-in, because just life happens. And if you do check in every week, and the girls like for us to have those checklists of like, I know for sure I have to get these things done. It may not happen in the day that we had planned it for, but like by the end of the week, if we've checked off all these things, then we know we're on track. And so that's what y'all were talking about earlier, about trying the different formats out. It's okay to dabble in the different formats to see how each student learns best, because, some kids are not going to do well with an asynchronous course. It's going to be July and the whole course is no one's done a thing. But then, for other students, they'll breeze right through it. So I think the weekly check-in is, if I had to simplify it, that's probably my planning style right now, because then you can adjust the plan week to week. So I think that's a good tip for families who may not have much consistency in their lifestyle.
Sarah, that was a lesson that I learned not super early on, but because I have much older kids than my younger child, and there were a couple of times, and this I'm being completely honest here. There were a couple of times my big kids were doing, let's say algebra or, a little bit harder math. And I would not grade and not grade and not grade. And suddenly 2 or 3 months have gone by and I haven't graded math. So then I sit down one weekend and I grade all the math and I'm like, oh my goodness, these kids do not understand what's going on. And so that's when we had to go back and that's where, my deep planning failed me. Well, I failed it because I wasn't grading, but then we'd have to go back. Okay, well, instead of, finishing on this day in May when we think we're going to finish, we're going to go back 3 months, start back over when you started doing poorly in math and, try to catch up from there and maybe work a little into the summer to make sure they understood it. But yeah. So
That's so helpful to hear too, though, because it's just realistic. It's you're a mom or a dad or whoever is doing the homeschooling is one person, and there's a lot to manage with the entire household and everything going on. And I think it's helpful for people to hear that. It is for me. So thank you for sharing that because sometimes, you have those feelings, but you're like, does anybody else feel this way? Or is this just me? Like, is this just my family? So I think that's super helpful. And I just appreciate you sharing that.
well, you're very welcome. And just if it makes you feel even better, know that it happened on more than one occasion. I'm not a fast learner.
Sometimes you have to learn the lesson over and over again. At least that's for me.
Right.
And I know, Sarah, you mentioned some of the different learning styles and differences or difficulties in learning. And that I think has been like the biggest stumbling block in our family. Now, fortunately, my wife just loves researching. So she's like, oh, here's a problem. I'm going to figure out they'll try this and try that. But these regular check-ins can actually be good to start identifying like, this math program isn't working at all for my child. It's not that he's not putting in the effort and I know he can do it. It's just that's not the right thing. So let's figure out something. And that's where it's great to have the advisors or our special services people here at Kolbe, because it could be like, I'm not sure if it's just, we're not trying hard enough or maybe we need to try something different. So it's nice to have people like I said, my wife just loves research. She'll get online, research everything, see what the problems might be, and then she tries different things herself. But not everybody wants to do that or is interested in that. So it's good to have a community here that you can say, maybe we got to check something out here before we get too far.
Yeah, I think that's great, Stephen. I have a lot of families who will, like you said, Sarah, that idea of like, am I the only one? I must be the only one. So they won't say anything. And halfway through the year they keep running into the same roadblock and then it's like, okay, let's really dive in, like what's going on within the home, not just the student, not just the schoolwork, what's going on within the home, how's the student approaching this work. And you really start diving into it and you're like, oh, there might be some supports there that we need to put in place to make things more successful. So to not be worried about, even if you think you're like, I don't know if this is a concern or not, is this normal enough, shoot a message to your advisor. Should I be seeing this in this grade level? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, well, let's chat about it. If the answer is maybe, okay, I think I'm fine. We're going to wait it out. But there's just this balance between everything's a concern. Some things, third grade boys are going to be third grade boys. Best of luck some days, truly. Like my mom has stories of my brothers in third grade. Other times, okay, by high school, like how can we still be struggling in some of these things? Is it homeschooling gone wrong, or do we have some issues? Lots and lots of digging. Wow, I wish we would have put support sooner. So just that balance. Like, don't be worried about it. Don't be worried about asking the question. If you have a sneaky suspicion, follow your guts. Parents' intuitions are amazing. Truly follow them. And then also, but not be so overly worried that every time we're slightly what feels behind, I'm going to put quotations around behind. You're not behind. You're where your student's at. And it's the beauty of homeschool. We meet them where they're at, and then we walk at their pace. But yeah, ask those questions just to not be worried about it. It's follow your guts. It's great. Don't wait it out. Don't just say they're going to grow out of it. That can be really hard and can turn into damage control down the road too.
That makes me think, Rylan, wasn't there a recent parent partnership about that kind of when you're unsure
We
about,
did. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. I was like, when Googling stopped
yeah,
working or something like that.
it
Basically,
was.
like you've done your homework and we're not finding the answer. Our advisors kind of gave some extra steps past the just Googling it on your own. And I think it was when something about Google. Ask your advisor, grab that PPM. It's fantastic. It'll again
That
give
was
you
a good
some
one.
more pointers. Yeah.
It made me think about also just like kind of doing a self-assessment on like yourself as the person doing the homeschooling of like what subjects do you not like to teach? Which subjects do you struggle in? Um, and like how can I offset that to maybe delegate it to a different learning format? Where maybe we're not bumping heads or I'm not explaining something in a way that they understand. So, or that you just like really don't like to teach. I really don't like to teach grammar and writing at all whatsoever. So that's really tricky when you have kids with dyslexia. But but just knowing like your own limitations and knowing that it's okay to ask for help whenever you have a topic that maybe you're not as interested in or as great at. And then I was thinking about another point. A lot of us are coming to homeschooling where we have this comparison of what like comparing yourself to public school or private, whatever brick and mortar, you just like compare yourself like, well, I must not be doing everything that they would be doing if they were in this other situation. And I think that that's the evil one coming in and trying to, steer you in the wrong direction because when they're there, a lot of the times, like in public school, for instance, my daughter, it was like she was getting pushed along as if everything was fine, but it wasn't fine. And, I think just recognizing that um, you are doing everything you can to provide the best education for them. And, you know, you're you don't need to compare yourself because like Rylan said, like quote unquote behind. Well, what does that even mean? Yes, sometimes there are students who are significantly, I guess, need some support to get to a place that, they can grasp some certain concepts, but I think like you don't need to compare yourself to um a different learning environment. It's just creating the environment that works best for you and your students. And that was a hard mindset for me to get out of, to be honest. Like I just kept having that thought of like, well, maybe they would be better off if someone else was teaching them. And you know, I think that personally, I think that everybody who's homeschooled has thought of that at some point in time. If not, like, whew, man, I wish I could feel it, but I just thought of that, and
Mhm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Sarah. Like, I think it's one of the biggest roadblocks as a new parent to homeschooling to overcome because most parents have probably come through the public school system. So then what they try to do is recreate the public school system in their home, but that's not
hmm
what we're doing. We're homeschooling. It's gonna look different. One of my favorite things to do is actually to break down roughly a public school day to see how much schooling are they doing in the public schools versus what you're doing at home. Because I have some families who will be like, well, if we aren't doing eight family school for 8 hours a day, then we're doing it wrong
hmm
because that's what they're doing at school. And it's like, whoa, like let's back up. Like let's break that day down. 8 hours in public school, you're probably getting about 2 to 3 hours of instructional time. By the
right.
time you take out transition, recesses, lunch, interruptions in a classroom, I mean, when you have
hmm
30 kids you're trying to teach something to, how many times do we have to stop and re-explain it? Or, tell them to stop throwing paper across the room versus you're with your student, you're getting them through their subject, and they got through their math lesson in 20 minutes. So don't try to be recreating some other system within your home. It's okay if it almost feels easier or faster than anywhere else they'd be because it probably is, depending on what your home setup is, how many kids are at the table.
Mhm.
You might have an 8 hour day as a teacher parent if you have a lot of kids in your home. That's valid, but not any one of your kids is doing school for that whole 8 hours. Maybe, as Diana pointed out, and one of her notes is, tagging in your older kids to help your younger kids. So maybe their school day looks a little longer. Great way to get some supports as a teacher. But I do like that point, Sarah. Just you're creating your system in your home, and comparing is going to be very detrimental.
And Rylan, I had to giggle when you said that's the beauty of homeschooling, because all the kids in our neighborhood make fun of all the mothers because we say that all the time. Anytime we have to make any of those shifts you're talking about for whatever reason, a move, an illness, just not grading, whatever it is, or you just want to have cookies one day. So instead, you're just going to, if someone's having a rough day, we're just going to stop. We're going to make some cookies. And we would say that's the beauty of homeschooling. You can shift it around and it's okay.
Yeah.
With the way that schools have gone, obviously, they're more centralized, they're bureaucratic. So you kind of have to build a system of you're this age, you go in this grade, and we do our best each year. But I mean, we know, like, not every child walks at the same time. Not every child talks at the same time. The development, and especially of the brain, is different for each child. But then you throw in something like, I've got a child with ADHD. If that happens, they're developing more slowly than other people their age. That's okay. They'll get to the same spot, just not at the same time. So it really, the homeschooling, as you've said, everybody here, that really gives you that freedom to do what's appropriate for the child at the time. And all the studies will show that kids, for the most part, get to the same spot, but it just not at the same time. So you can just do what's best for them and for you as a family too.
It made me think of and now if there's listeners out here who are in Germany right now, like, don't quote me, but I do remember when we lived in Germany that I believe they don't even start officially, like, in official school, like structured learning, until like 7. Like, they have a period of kindergarten that lasts that long period where they're just basically learning through the world around them and through play. And so I think one of the things that I see a lot, and you just feel this pressure of, even when they're in preschool, to be like, we need to do all of this. Like, you need to be learning to read. But there is something to be said about those developmental just milestones, and learning through play and learning through experience, and letting them marinate a little bit before the structured, rigorous schooling takes place, and some kids are like, sure, I love doing workbooks. So I think, just kind of taking their lead is something that could be considered too, and to not put so much pressure on it, because those developmental milestones do happen for people at different times.
Yeah. Every kid's different. We
Right.
pace differently. And so meeting each of your kids where each of them are at, and then that will change every year. Like I always tell parents, by the time you master where your kid is at, you are going to be relearning the following year, because everything's going to change. You're like, what just happened? They grew up, their brains developed a little more, and we're starting all over. But now you have some tools in your toolbox. You know how to make those adjustments.
So let's talk about some of those sort of day-to-day, setting out a schedule and then rolling with what comes along and deciding how we're going to manage that. Dana, are you up for starting with that?
Yeah, sure. And honestly, that probably for me, I only had 3 kids at home, teaching 3 at once for just a few years, because then my bigger ones graduated and went off to college. But that was probably one of the hardest things for me. That was probably my biggest stumbling block, because it's not easy to have a little child at home while you're trying to answer an algebra question. So what I would do, and it was just, I'll just say it didn't always work, but what we aimed to do when Michael was very little was, when he was still a baby and he wasn't even doing school yet, I had those printouts of their daily lesson plan, and they would get that. And they, we had talked about it. So they knew that what they were to work on while the baby was awake was the things that they had to read on their own, or, whatever they could do that they didn't need me for. And then as soon as he went down for nap, we started the Latin, repetitions, or the going over the math lesson, or that kind of thing. Then when it actually got easier when Michael started kindergarten, because of course he was very excited, like I think Rylan's younger one, because he's been watching his siblings do this, so he can't wait to get started. So then I would, it was sort of the same, like I would teach him while the bigger kids were doing their reading portions and whatever. And then I had this closet set up in my house of different little things for Michael. And it's like, a set of marbles or different little manipulatives, I guess. And so I would try to pull a different one out each day so that I could put him on the floor with that while I was trying to A, remember chemistry, B, explain it. So kind of like that. And then once, he got older, also scheduling some of the activities outside the house to be things everybody could do. Like our swimming coach had all age levels. So the big kids would swim at a different hour, but we would drive to Rise. I would do school at, kindergarten in the car with Michael while they were swimming their, hour. And then we would switch. They would get in the car. He'd go swim with the coach with the younger kids, and the big kids, that was, even though we were literally in our van, but we would, go over whatever it is needed going over. So, just kind of working with whatever time you have. That was how we muddled through.
What about the times that are, things come up? Sarah's mentioned several scenarios, things that come up. Say more about that, Sarah, and how either you've navigated them yourselves or accompanied folks in your life, or you're advising families that through those sorts of situations.
A lot like Diana said, where school doesn't have to necessarily be at home. And then I also think that I kind of am trying to keep my train of thought, because I feel like this could go off in a bunch of different directions. So specifically tackling like life challenges that are like semi-permanent, or, like a more like interruption or a stumbling block that's like recurring. For instance, like a deployed someone away for work, or someone else in the household that, is where you're alone, homeschooling, single parenting, all those scenarios where it's kind of like everything is, you're kind of not the single point of failure, but it's pretty much on you, to manage everything to keep going. I think taking a pause, like a deep breath, and knowing that school doesn't have to happen every single day is one way. You're not going to be able to take sadly, your math book with you to heaven. Like our salvation is the most, precious thing. And the gift of family and the gift of time is beyond, you can catch up on the other stuff later. There's really just like no simpler way to put it, is that some things become more of a priority in that moment. And I guarantee you, your kids are learning from every experience around them, going and learning how to count change at a store, ordering your own food, learning life lessons. If you can't do something out of a book, you can turn these things into life lessons. Or maybe you are with somebody who is nearing the end of their life, those stories and things that they're learning from those individuals who are able to share that history with them. So just mainly taking a step back in that moment. There's times when my husband was getting ready to deploy or leave for a year, and we didn't do school. We just hung out with him, because that's the most important thing in that moment in time, and we can figure out picking up where we left off later. And I struggled with that, because I felt like, oh, if we take this time off, then X, Y, or Z. It's like, no, you'll just do it later, and then, when people are sick, or when you're sick, there was often times when like mom is sick and nobody else is there, and, you're crawling to the bathroom and you're ordering Uber Eats so that your kid can go, your little one that's not old enough to cook yet can go to the front porch and pick it up. I mean, just like, giving yourself lots of grace that it's okay to utilize those resources to help support you in that moment. You may not be a takeout family, so maybe it's just we're having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches tonight. Um, and I think Jennifer and talked about it last is getting your kids involved in the day-to-day tasks to help lighten the load of certain things. Like how can we all pitch in together to accomplish this? My older ones will help with the younger one. It made me think of when you were talking about how your homeschooling looked. There was a lot of times where we did homeschooling on the floor with the baby on the floor because that was the only place she wouldn't stop crying because it's like, we really need to do this. Of course, she's going to refuse to take a nap. When you have this plan, I was just going to take a nap. No, she's not going to take a nap ever. So a lot of baby wearing. There's just like all kinds of things that can come up during your homeschooling day, but it's okay to give yourself grace and just take a day off for whatever is going on.
And I even think it's okay to do that for fun. We live in Texas and it really never snows here. And our first year homeschooling, we got a great snow. And the whole neighborhood was like, the homeschoolers, we were like, we're not doing school today. So the moms made fires at home and made cookies, and the kids were out playing in the snow. And then they'd come to the houses for snacks. And it's a best memory for sure.
Yes, taking days off to just enjoy the fun yeah, that's so true. I think that's like a really healthy tip too to balance out homeschooling because it's real tempting to just be like, oh, there's bad weather. We can just stay in and get a whole lot done. It's like, no, you can go out there and build a snowman, or we can go check the temperature. There's a lot you could do with that. So those are fun days.
Rylan, are you game for talking about maintaining the structure that you've set up when things come up sort of from the outside?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I won't lie. I'm still figuring it out.
Sure, of course.
We're in those years, and in our home, we're both two full-time working parents. So there's a lot that just comes in the day that you're like, well, that was the plan until
Yeah.
it wasn't. Um, and that's okay. And I think even this upcoming year, my first grader is going to actually go into the online program because we discovered this last year. Like I said, she desires for more structure and more consistency. And we've seen through full-time jobs and life happening. I have family that stops by frequently at our house because we're home. Boy, like, of course the door's open. Um, and so we had to kind of make adjustments, but we also, in a very loving way, share. I've been intentional about sharing with people like, oh, like, what are you up to? And instead of just being like, oh, we do some schooling and then we do the housework and some laundry, like, I'll be like, oh, no, from 10 to 11, when I have a break from work, we're schooling. So
Mm.
if, hey, if you want to, that's fantastic. Can you do it before 10 or after 11? Like, we have to be so intentional. Or typically during nap time, we do school too. So, like, way after nap time. So just sharing that with the people that you know who are in your lives that might have that idea of like, you're totally flexible. Um, just gently sharing like this is actually our schedule. It's funny. Sometimes I've shared my schedule with even like my sister-in-laws and they're like, "Oh, like you run a tight ship. Like there's not a lot of flexibility in there." I'm like, "No.
Yeah.
No, between running the jobs and making sure dinner gets done and work gets done, and schoolwork gets done, we have to run a really tight ship, but I don't share it out of this like, don't come into my home. You're not welcome here. We try to keep a very open home, and that's why people always just stop by. Um, but still creating that space of like, here's when our schooling's happening, and we need to try to save it. But again, souls are headed to heaven. That's ultimately it. And so if we need to adjust to be there for another family, or another family member, whatever that looks like, then what I can do instead is, hey, look, tomorrow Nana needs to stop by at 10 o'clock. And so we are going to adjust our school day and what that looks like. And so just trying to have some intentionality, understanding flexibility happens. The kids in our house, they don't wake up and go, oh, at 9 o'clock we start school. They know at some point we're sitting down to do an hour of school. They haven't figured out that there's a specific time for it because it changes fairly frequently in our home. The other thing too, and life's gonna happen. The plumber's gonna show up, the electrician's gonna show up. Something we just had our dishwasher break recently. I spent on a 4 day plumber just headache. And it disrupted every day, 4 days straight. And I just had to be like, you know what? It's okay. It's fine. We need to do school for 20 minutes. 20 minutes, that's all I need. I need to do a reading lesson with one and math with another. Um, you're kind of to Diana and Sarah's point of how do you do some of that managing in the home is if you have siblings, utilize the siblings for that quiet instructional. I need 20 minutes to do math with your brother. So older sister, you need to play with the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We did a
Yes.
lot of that.
That's what's
Yeah, there's
happening,
I'm
right?
like, that is that's a,
That's the
yes,
thing.
That's
that's
a
a thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we do a lot of trade-off time with that. Yeah, if the grandparents are gonna come, I'm like, that's fantastic. I need you to sit down and read a book with them then while
Right.
I finish math with the other one for
Here's
10
some math.
minutes.
Here's some
Like,
math facts. Can you please review these?
yeah,
It's your
yeah, give
job.
them the cards. Yeah, when Auntie comes over, I'm like, here's the flashcards. Run through those real quick before you go play. So just having some back pocket, how to be flexible, how to be adjustable. And some days the answer is that's not happening today.
Yeah.
And that's
And
all
honestly,
right.
Rylan, I always felt like my kids were always fine when it wasn't going to happen today, because then they were kind of free while I was dealing with whatever the situation was. So it's almost for the mom to say, like, it's just okay. The mom needs to
I
know it's okay.
Yeah, Diana, I think you're spot on with that because I think sometimes the kids are like, "Oh yeah, this went awry." Like, mom can't help me right now, but it's like, "Oh, you can." But I think Rylan, you mentioned it on either I think maybe it was a PPM or something where it was like, if you did anything at all, you can at least read something.
Hmm.
And, you know, you can at least read a book or,
Yep.
read a book to your younger sibling and or
Or
whatever. And
turn on audiobook. I astounded by what my daughter picks up through an audiobook. There are some days that the best I could do is like I from the
Mhm.
Kolbe reading list, go pick something, get it on an audiobook and give it to him for that 30 minutes that as a parent, it's not schoolwork that needs to be done. It's housework that needs to be taken care of. Or if you
Mm.
work and you have a work meeting that you're like, I have to do this. And the kids, but I don't want them to just be watching TV and I can't leave them unattended outside. Audiobooks, guys, saving grace. And then the conversations that come from that, the imagination right now, they're into boxcar children. There's, like you said, there's still ways to learn when it feels like the school day and the workbooks aren't getting open. There are still ways to engage, and it's so fun to watch.
Oh, it made me think of something for people who are listening too. If you're not necessarily in a traditional homeschool format and you have one of these major life events come up and you're in like asynchronous or live online, like please communicate that with your advisor or the teacher of the course so we can help support you through that time. You're not alone. There's things that can be adjusted. It may not look in the way that you want it to look as far as like exactly, but there's ways that things can be adjusted to help you through those difficult moments and times. So don't feel like you don't necessarily have to share all the details, but just be able to help us help you with your homeschooling, especially if you're not in the traditional like homeschooling where you can be a little bit more flexible. Like maybe you've decided to do live online and something drastic has happened in your family, like please let us know. Um, don't feel that you're having to like drag your kids across this finish line of, there just may need to be a change and we can help talk about it and come up with options to help you with your school year.
Yeah, even if you don't think you're going to need any adjustments, like a life event happened, we don't think it's going to disrupt anything, so we
Hmm.
didn't say anything. Don't do that. Just come let us know. Hey, this life thing happened. I don't think it's going to affect schooling, but maybe. So
Hmm.
the first time that an assignment is late, we know that something was going on at home. We'll reach out. Let's chat about it. Let's make a plan because obviously it ended up affecting school a little bit, and that's okay. But yeah, I agree, Sarah. Reach out, especially async and the online. It can feel like there's less flexibility, but we are here to support that schooling, whatever that may look like, short term or long term, life events.
I think the teachers are very like approachable and they care so much about each of the students that you know you can let them know what's going on or talk to your advisor and like Rylan said, it's just even if you don't think there's going to be something, it's like at least you can have it on the radar and know that you have people that are in your corner to help you.
Got a lot of those here for sure. It's one of its greatest strengths. Yep. And there's so much more to say, right? So this is not the only conversation we can have on this topic. We will keep this going. And if folks want to hear us talk about certain things, so we'd be receptive to that. So drop us an email, podcast@kolbe.org, or comment on the social media posts for these episodes. Any final thoughts or takeaways that you want to leave with us?
Go open your course plans.
Yeah.
Give us a call if you feel overwhelmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
And try to just keep the joy. Like, it's such a beautiful and I'm saying this because it's over for me now. And I know y'all are in the thick of it and you're probably thinking I'm nuts, but it's over for me. It's such a great family life experience to be together all the time. So just keep that joy. No, it's not going to go as planned. That's okay. Reach out. Look, open up your books, like Rylan said, early. Try to get as much done as you can, but it's really all just going to be okay, and just enjoy the beautiful experience that it is.
You have to bookmark this spot in the recording, Diana, so we can come back and listen to that on Would We Encourage, like
in January.
Exactly.
It's easy for me to say because I'm not doing it anymore.
But you got a lot of credit. I mean, for you to you have earned that. So that's very helpful to hear. Okay. Well, as I usually say about this time in our episodes, our show notes are going to have links to lots of stuff that has come up during our conversation today, relevant Kolbecast episodes, links to get more information that these ladies have referred to. So we'll invite folks to check out the show notes there. Diana, it's been lovely meeting you. I hope this is the first of many conversations with you here. And Sarah and Rylan, it's great to have you back. And I look forward to the next time y'all are here. Thank you guys so much for all you do for our Kolbe families and for spending this time with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Stephen.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.